Hey there! Welcome to Pixels, Clicks, and ROI, the AdSkills podcast where we only interview paid traffic professionals who can produce real results. I'm excited about today's episode. We're featuring Dorothy Illson. Dorothy is an incredible paid traffic and tracking expert. She focuses on information products typically between $400 and $2,000, and she helps her clients focus on scaling on Facebook, Google, YouTube using tracking. More on Dorothy's story right after this. Hey, here with Dorothy Illson. Dorothy, thank you so much for joining me today. Excited to have you here.
Thank you, John. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's fun. So Dorothy has an amazing podcast herself that I got to be a guest a while back. So it's fun to be able to return the favor. Excited to highlight you really help people in the information product space. So you're focused on helping people that have courses, that have webinars, typically selling products anywhere from kind of the $397 up to $2,000. That's kind of the sweet spot of what you've worked with. And what I love about you is you can do Facebook advertising, Google advertising, and you really focus on tracking. That's a piece that I love. You've gotten really good at Google Analytics, Google Data Studio, Wicked Reports, those types of things. Just the fact that you've mastered the tracking side is what I think just makes you such a special person in this market. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk about how you create results for people in the info product space. But before we get into that, can you give people a little bit of your background and talk about how you got into media buying?
Certainly. Well, I appreciate the kind words, so thank you. I definitely had a bit of a twisty road into media buying. I studied finance and accounting, and my goal really, throughout college was to become an accountant. I wanted to work for one of the big four firms. I got that job successfully, and then I realized, I was not doing it for the right reasons. I wasn't excited about it. I didn't actually like accounting, and I basically did a complete 180. So I ended up giving up that job offer and going to work at a very early stage startup. So I was their third employee, and I really, at any startup like that, you wear a lot of hats. And so I got to learn a lot. I got to really get involved in different areas of the business. And what I saw and was a part of over the next 3.5 years was, we grew that company completely bootstrapped from 0 to 6 million a year in annual revenue, really almost entirely off the back of Facebook ads. And so when it was time for me to, move on, I really wanted to, help companies to do the same thing. And so I ended up learning Facebook ads and, really went deep on that platform and started to, do that same thing for my clients. And so that was really the birth of my agency. And then it was really when I got connected with AdSkills, with Justin Brook, that I started to really understand paid traffic from a more holistic perspective and get into these other platforms and really learn how all of this stuff works together to, really create a successful business.
Awesome. And I think your story is so important because we talk about tracking in the numbers side, your accounting background, you're a very financial, like the numbers focused individual. And that to me is something that's just so special. There's a lot of people out there that can set up campaigns, write a couple ads, but they're not focused on the details. And so I think that's what I want to make sure people understand. Your very analytical brain is part of what helps you create results for people is the fact that you truly get into the numbers. And then you start building your strategy on top of that. So excited to dive into that. That'll be really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think even for experienced advertisers, people who do this for a living, it can be easy to fall into the trap of making emotional decisions inside of the ad account. And so, you really nailed it. That's really what I focus on is making sure that, all of the decisions that we are making, from a, higher 30,000 foot strategic level down to the day-to-day decisions inside of the ad account, making sure that all of those choices are driven by data and what the numbers are really telling us.
Absolutely. I love it. So very quickly, before we get into the process that you help people create results, I have a selfish question for you. If people are coming in and they're looking at AdSkills, they're listening to this podcast, they see the success that you've created for your clients, and they're considering looking at, working with us. Can you just give a little bit of a background of how AdSkills has helped you get up to the level that you're at right now?
Certainly. I mean, I think for me, I dove, so deep into Facebook ads, and I really became a master at that, and I was getting great results for my clients, but at the end of the day I was a one trick pony, and so it was when I, realized I've got to expand my skill set. I need to be able to help my clients, with more. And so I ended up, getting a couple of the ad skills courses, really just enjoyed that content. And as I started following your content more closely, following Justin's content, I really was able to transform myself from a, Facebook expert to someone who has a holistic understanding of paid traffic and how all of these things work together. And I think I see that, all the time now with my clients where, we might find, for example, I had a client who, I was running Facebook ads for exclusively. He's been a client since day one of my agency. And when we, started looking at all of the platforms together, what we realized was that his YouTube traffic that he'd been running on his own, that was actually where we were getting the lowest cost in terms of our leads and our cold traffic, but we were actually converting those people through our non-buyer retargeting on Facebook. So when I was able to, take over the YouTube account, we were able to really, narrow in on what was driving our results and, how we could leverage each of the platforms that we were advertising on, for the thing that they were doing the best. And that allowed us to dramatically improve our ROI and to be able to, ultimately scale up and really create a significant change in his business because we were looking at how all these pieces play together. So that is really the biggest thing that I've gotten from AdSkills. And just to, touch a little bit on the people part of this, I mean, I think the community that I've found through AdSkills has been truly, the most phenomenal piece of this whole puzzle. I'm in Pro League, the Slack community, and the ability to connect there with high-level marketers who, who are, so much better than me in certain things, and who I can ask questions to, who I can, really learn from, hone my own skills, and have a place where I can go. If I have something really challenging going on with a client, they can be a sounding board for me, and that has proven invaluable. And so, I think that it's the knowledge, certainly the courses, the content that you and Justin put out for free, but it's also the community and the people that I've been able to surround myself with through AdSkills.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so nice to know how people leverage this and how they've been able to create their own results. Once again, the most important thing for us is it doesn't matter if we can do it, if you can't do it too. Dorothy is a perfect testament of that. She came in as already a skilled paid traffic marketer. You understood Facebook advertising. But as you said, that kind of the one trick pony, the one-legged stool, you were able to create a very diversified, agency for yourself. And that's what so many people are looking for nowadays, is the ability to get off of the one-legged stool on Facebook and be able to build their business across multiple platforms. So let's talk about that now. Let's talk about the process that you take people through. Let's say I'm an advertiser. I have an information product. I've done some stuff on Facebook. I've created some success, but I've kind of hit my scaling plateau. And I'm coming to you and saying, hey, Dorothy, how can you help me, really continue to grow my business? So can we just kind of walk through the process that you take clients through to say, here's where you're at and here's how I can help you get to the next level?
Definitely. So the majority of my clients, when they come to me, it's just like you said, they're already spending some money, they're seeing some success. They're typically spending about, $5,000 to $15,000 a month, but they've hit that ceiling. They can't scale, they can't figure out what to do next. And when I come into a business like that, the first thing that we do is really look to understand the market, understand the customer. It's, all of that really kind of unsexy stuff that people prefer to skip over, but that is really the thing that is going to drive your results. I think often people, even if they have gone through, the customer avatar exercise, or they've done an empathy map, they potentially still are only really understanding their customer from really one perspective, one pain point, and that's what they've hit on. But I think part of the way to get someone past a barrier, a ceiling that they've found with scaling, is to go back to that process and to look to understand your customer from different angles. And so, I'll give you an example. The startup that I worked for before beginning my agency, it was a subscription meal delivery company. And they still are. And the real, the fundamental target customer for that was a busy executive who wanted to eat healthy but didn't have time to cook. And that can get you pretty far. But then again, you hit this ceiling. And so what we were able to do was we were able to look at, okay, who else is a potential perfect customer for this business? Maybe it is the son or daughter who wants their elderly parent to eat well, and they can't cook. Maybe it is the busy working mother who wants her kids to be better fed. And so there are usually other angles that we can tap into that can allow us to adjust our messaging and reach new groups of people. So that's part one. But then part two is actually making sure that we understand what has driven their results thus far and how we can leverage that knowledge to really get them to the next level. And this all goes back to tracking. I know this is something that you, John, it's really your specialty, and I have learned so much from you on this topic, so I'm grateful for that. And what I've found is that most people, they really just kind of get the bare minimum in place. They have their pixels, but then they're relying on the data from the ad networks to help them to make decisions. And when you are spending money, especially on multiple platforms, that just isn't sufficient, because you really have to understand how all of these different networks are working together. And so, I mentioned the client where, we get most of our cold traffic on YouTube, and then we convert those people on Facebook. That's the kind of information that, you really need to know. And the only way to know it is to make sure that you have really, really solid tracking in place. My favorite tool for this right now is Wicked Reports. It's something that I have found to just be worth its weight in gold for my clients. And so, yeah, it's really about, understanding the data, understanding, how attribution is really working. And it's just like, I use the analogy for my clients, most people have, 6, 7, 8 touch points with your business before they actually make a purchase. So if, you're only looking at last click attribution, or, you are trying to understand, what your customer journey looks like, you can't just look at those, 6 or 7 touch points and say it was the last one that made an impact. It's like going out to the bar with your friends and having 7 beers and then saying, which one of these beers got me drunk? Well, the answer is all of them. And so you need to have that really full holistic picture of your customer journey in order to be able to scale and really optimize what you're doing with paid traffic.
Completely agree. And one thing I want to touch on here quickly. So there are people in the information space, particularly those that have used Infusionsoft. I know a lot of people have built their systems around that. Scott DeGrossier from Wicked Reports is incredible. Used to work with Infusionsoft, has an awesome integration with them. And sometimes what I found is people said, yeah, we use Wicked Reports. We tried it and it didn't do what we needed it to. And so what I want to talk about for a second is, you and I both know that tracking tools are things that you have to build and you have to work on to get the information you get out of them. So one thing I want to make abundantly clear is, if someone's listening to this and they're like, well, she used Wicked Reports, we already tried Wicked Reports, didn't work. Let's just talk for a second about how, just because you have, like for Google Analytics, you can't just throw it on your website and have perfect tracking. You have to have habits built into your business to allow you to get the data that you need back out of it. You have to have your goals, your e-commerce tracking, your integrations. With Wicked Reports, it's your email system and your sales system. So can we talk for a second, just about when it comes down to those things, really making sure the process that you kind of walk people through, some of the habits they have to put in place, tracking links, making sure that the code's in all the right places on their website, their integrations. Let's talk just for a second about how important those things are. Really, it's not the tool, it's the way that you use the tool. do you have a couple of like quick processes that you walk people through that you found, hey, most people have failed with this one particular thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's one thing necessarily, but it's about your expectations, right? I mean, people are so often looking for that magic button that's just going to like solve all their problems, and that doesn't exist. So, when I, for example, taking Wicked Reports, like when I look to implement Wicked Reports with one of my clients, the conversation that we have up front is, look, we need to go into this expecting that it's going to be 2 to 3 months perhaps until we really start to get good data, because you just don't know what holes that you're going to find. And so, you really have to go into it with that mindset and with understanding that it is a process and not necessarily a fun one either. I mean, once you get to the other side and you've got all this data, that really is gold for your business, but you need to put in the work to get there. And so, just understanding that you can't just plug in these tools and press play. You've got to, look at the data that's coming in, see, okay, why does this not make sense? Why are all of my sales, being attributed here when we know that's not the case, whatever it might be. And then going in and figuring out how to uncover those holes in your tracking and fill them correctly. Staying consistent with the way that you're using UTMs, the way that you are implementing tracking on your Facebook ads, on the links in your emails. All of these things have to be systematized. There has to be a process that you are following every single time the exact same way. And really, I think this is kind of a microcosm of what really makes a business work, in the macro. You have likely processes and systems for your customer service agents, for your sales team. It's no different with your paid traffic. You need to have these systems in place, and you need to make sure that you are executing on those systems correctly so that the data that you get out on the other side is going to be actionable for you.
Beautiful. And I think that's the piece that's so important here is you really help guide people through that process to understand the expectations, to get the systems in place in order to make sure they have all of this data. That's the piece that's the most valuable thing that you do. You're an incredible paid traffic person, but the fact that you can help set the expectation and install the habits into the company is really what sets you apart. And so for anyone listening, that's the piece to me that as you listen to anything that Dorothy talks about for the rest of the podcast, understanding that she's been through this and that she knows how to help you and your team have the right expectations and put the right processes in place is how she's going to help you win. So now that we've got that covered, let's talk about from the traffic side. You typically say someone starts with you that's $5,000 to $15,000 a month on Facebook. They're getting started. What's kind of the process that you look? Are you looking to expand out their opportunities on Facebook? Do you go look at Google search? Do you look at YouTube? What's kind of the process that you typically work through?
It really is individual to the client. I think in a lot of ways, it depends on the market. It depends on, who the person is and where that person is hanging out. And, it also, like when we're talking about YouTube, for example, how good is our video that we have to leverage? And so all of these questions play a role. I think for clients who, come in and they're already successful on a certain platform to some degree, but they just can't get scale. That's the first place that we're going to start is, auditing their account, figuring out, where are the missed opportunities? What are they doing that, really needs to change? And I think when we're talking about Facebook, and we can dive into this a little bit if you'd like, the biggest problem that I see is that people are still running Facebook ads like it's 2015 or 2016. This is something I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with. Molly Pittman, this is something she's been talking about a lot. And it's so true. It's this idea of, back just a couple years ago, you really had to get very, very granular in order to win on Facebook. We were testing all of our interests in individual ad sets. We would have, 10 to 15 ads inside every single one of those. And we were really getting down to a very, very minute level in terms of controlling the platform, because that was what you had to do in order to get results. And that's simply not true anymore. In fact, the opposite is true. That can really work against you with today's algorithm. I mean, here in 2019, these platforms are just so much smarter than they were even a couple of years ago. And so, the Facebook algorithm today, to keep going on that example, it actually works best when you give it larger audiences, when you give it, more data, more room to go out and find the right people for you. Of course, your messaging has to be on point. Your targeting still has to be on point. So it's certainly not, I don't want to give the implication that this means it's easier. It just can be simpler. And so I think that's a big advantage for people. If you do have your messaging dialed in, if you do really understand who your target is, you no longer have to, go in and be running 100 different campaigns at one time. You can have, a few foundational campaigns with larger audiences, with fewer ads, and then be constantly testing, constantly be, leveraging the tools that are really built into the platform. Facebook's split test tool, for example, has been just invaluable to me with my clients. So what we're doing typically is, I'll take an account where, they're spending $10,000 a month and they just have, 1,000 different things in place. It's all very confusing. It's all very, scattered and broken up. And they really are working against themselves in a large way. We'll simplify that down. We'll look at the data. We'll identify what is actually working for you, what's driving your results, and then it's about taking those ads that are performing and then starting to run split tests, starting to get into this process that really never ends of launching a new split test against your control, figuring out what works, scaling up the winners, cutting the losers, and then rinse and repeat. I think we like to overcomplicate things, sometimes, and I don't really know why. I mean, maybe it's because it helps us feel smarter, like we're really doing something. I don't know, but we can really get in our own way sometimes. And so keeping things simple, continuously testing, continuously looking to figure out what's working and what isn't is really the game here. Another thing that people are typically I wouldn't say doing wrong, but missing opportunities is that back a couple years ago, it was very hard to get results on the audience network with Facebook or on Messenger placements. But again, I mean, the algorithm has gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot smarter, and so now you really can use those placements effectively, and you can actually optimize your creatives to the specific placements right there within Ads Manager without actually creating a separate ad. And so it's things like this that are available to people, but they're typically not taken advantage of, that is so critical. And then, if the client is, for example, they're only spending money on Facebook, we get things, working better there. We start to scale up, and then we turn our attention to these other platforms and see, okay, what's the lowest hanging fruit for us here? For a lot of businesses, it's going to be all the things that you and Justin talk about. It's branded search. It's putting your retargeting on display, and figuring out what is the biggest opportunity for us to find our customers where they are and really be reaching them from all sides.
I love it. That was beautiful. The thing that I love that you talked about most is, so a lot of people are allergic to Facebook split tests. They just think it's the worst thing in the world. I love it. It's the only way we run Facebook ads anymore, is we split test everything, whether it be creatives, audiences. I've fallen absolutely in love with it, and I will never go back.
Well, here's what people need to understand. Facebook is doing their own split testing. When you launch two separate campaigns within your account, you don't actually know that those campaigns are running under the same, quote unquote, version of the algorithm, because Facebook's always doing their own tests. So, it really is one of the only ways to get a pure test inside of Facebook is by using that tool.
Completely agree. So, well, thank you so much for explaining your process, some of the things that you do to help people out. I think it's incredible what you're achieving, as you said, kind of implementing the low-hanging fruit, branded search, retargeting, and then also really helping people on YouTube. It's just something that there's such a huge opportunity. YouTube really, for me, is kind of the next big thing. And there's a big hurdle for people getting past that video creative spot and really understanding how to deploy their message in the right place, because YouTube is massive. There's 1.9 billion monthly active users. People often spend 40-minute sessions. It it reaches everyone from toddlers up to older demographic. You truly can reach everybody on YouTube. And so can you just spend a couple minutes talking about really the process that you've had success helping people get started on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, it has been mind-blowing to me the number of times that I have someone come to me who is advertising, successfully on Facebook, even if it's at, lower budgets, and they're using all video creatives, but they're not on YouTube. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And so, I think there has been such a big push in the advertising community over the last couple years to use video. And for most advertisers, like when I start with a new client, for example, if they don't have their messaging figured out, then we always start by testing image ads so we can really get the messaging nailed. And then once we have our messaging in place, we switch to video creatives to really supercharge our results. And so the missing the opportunity to take that video that's already working for you on Facebook and leverage it on YouTube, I mean, it's absolutely insane. And so, I think that for a lot of clients, what I've seen is if they're not currently using video to a large degree, there's a big mental hurdle that they kind of have to get over in producing video, especially because, like you mentioned, a lot of my clients are info product marketers. They're the face of their brand. And some of them are, better on video than others. But I think when you put a framework in place and you understand that, there's an anatomy of a successful YouTube video creative that is going to work for you if you simply follow, that script, giving credibility, or first providing the hook and then showing credibility, taking people through the pain, showing them the solution, and then telling them how you can provide that for them. If you simply just plug your message into these proven formulas that are really time tested, age old, just psychological processes for how humans make decisions, how they get excited about something and get motivated to take an action, then you can sit down in a single day, crank out 3 or 4 videos that you can begin to test and just get started. YouTube is just way too massive of an opportunity to not be playing in that space at all. So the advice I would give to someone who is advertising on Facebook but is not yet tapping into the power of YouTube is just get started, start testing. And I think that for a lot of business owners, they're going to be very surprised at where that leads them.
Totally. And I think the one thing that you didn't mention that I'm going to mention for you, because I know you do this, is since you help people get set up with their tracking correctly, you actually have information from your Facebook traffic that's going to help you optimize and find the right targeting on YouTube faster.
Oh, totally.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that you do I've seen you do it. It's really cool to see that you're helping people skip a lot of the learning curve on YouTube and just get straight to the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, take what's already working for you and apply that knowledge to other platforms. I mean, the amount of data that we have is just absolutely massive if you take advantage of it. And you can leverage, like if your lookalikes are performing for you on Facebook, then tap into Google's similar audiences. Just take what's already working for you, take those interests that have proven to perform for you, and find those interests on YouTube, on the Google platform, and really just take what's working for you and spread it out as far and wide as you can.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for spending the time to go through your process. It's been awesome having you on today. If someone would like to work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch to see if they can become a client of yours?
Absolutely. So best thing to do is to go to our website. That's Needles Eye Media, Needles IEYE media.com. You'll get to find our cool little AI robot that we've got there on the site that's going to talk you through some questions and let you get in contact with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dorothy. It was awesome having you on today. We just really appreciate the way that you approach paid traffic and tracking and how you help your clients. So thank you for being on. We'll chat soon.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
If you found this tutorial helpful, make sure you click on the subscribe button on the screen right now. Also, if you'd like to join the Daily Edge and get the daily dose of what's working in paid traffic and tracking, you can text Daily Edge to 44222.